Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Good. So Caitlin may be able to take you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just got a hold of her and let her know I had to work and whatnot. So she's just figuring things out to see if she can, she can take you.
Sounds good. If not, like I said, I'll just take my truck.
Sounds good. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that's at like that Richardson's Road, right?
Yeah, I think it's Richards Road. Not Richardson, I don't think. Richmond Road.
Okay, Richmond.
Yeah. You know, one of the problem too was Caitlin coming in from Airdrie, and I gotta be there 2 hours before the appointment. So that's how much of a wait already there is.
Yeah.
I know, you know?
Yep.
Well, let's see what she comes back with, and I'll kind of go from there if we, tell her not to worry about it or not. Sound good?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Alright, talk to you later. Love you. It's cool.
So let's talk about Gigapope. I mean, Thordan Extreme. He's not even a pope, he's a bishop. Oh yeah, the government figure and all that. He's hopped up on Nidhogg. All of these we did on minimum eye level, blind, no echo. And we kept that echo off for the whole thing.
Yeah, we didn't Shinryu this. We didn't hit 2 a.m. and say, you know what, maybe echo would be pretty nice. We downed both of these with no echo. Yeah, so shout out to our teams.
Yes, big shout out to our teams for not only sticking with us for all the hours, but putting up with our blindness through this. Now, we did have a special tool here, a little forensics I really, really enjoyed, which was the live stream. We were able to watch our own stream after we would die. Because there's usually 2 nights, so there's one I'm not paying attention to, perhaps. Or actually, by the power of the internet, let's take a look. In real time.
Real-time conversation.
Hey, it's suggesting our clips channel at the top. Nice job, YouTube.
In doubt? Just fake it till you bake it.
Oh, it was such a puzzle. I love this so much. I know this is kind of what progression raiders get to do. I'm kind of excited to be there someday now because it was just really, really fun trying to deduce when the night spiraled across the map, what that meant, what was on us, what debuffs were currently sitting on our screens.
Yeah, it's something we didn't do that during Shinryu.
No, we just kept blinding.
Probably we could have done that without echo if we had.
Yeah. Damage got so high in Shinryu. It would have helped. It would have helped us figure out why we were dying.
I just remember your butt puckering every single time you got to the little dragon ad phase.
Oh, I hate it.
And then there was butt puckering and Thordan for the charging knights. That made both our butts pucker. There's a lot of puckering going on.
Stop saying that. Stop saying that. But you're absolutely right. Both Thordan and Tsukiyomi had some real nail-biter moments and just like deeply uncomfortable mechanics. So we went into this, Thordan, not only blind, but no understanding of traditional Final Fantasy tactics. And one of the first things we learned was the clock positions. What a useful tool.
I'm assuming this is part of the reason, as a tank, you're told to just kind of, in general, always face bosses north.
You put these markers in all the corners, and around like a clock, you would in a circle, so that anytime you have to run apart, split for certain mechanics, particularly because mechanics target one healer, one DPS, or chain together certain job types, you all run for it into your different cubbies, and thereby maximize.
Bless our team. They didn't suggest this for quite a while. They let us bail without clock positions for quite a bit.
It's an extremely useful tool. If I'm being honest, I think this makes streams more unwatchable. Because when I would, as a player with no knowledge of the game, show up and be like, what's Final Fantasy about? Is this game good? What does progression rating look like back in 2019? Checking it out, I saw just symbols all over the map and went, oh, this is messy. What is this? Now, once you're in it and you understand clock positions, it's beautiful.
I mean, to compare it to other games I watch, is it any worse than like looking at a spreadsheet of add-ons?
Seeing all the deadly boss mods kick around and all the various pop-ups and words. Yeah, no, it's not that visually disconcerting. I already understood that language, though. Coming from World of Warcraft.
That is fair. That is fair. Sometimes context helps, it turns out, Kyle. What I enjoyed about this was we got through quite a few of Thordan's mechanics without doing it the quote-unquote proper way. And then we had our own little rule of like, well, did we get past that phase? All right, just tell us the optimal way to do it. Once we got past it through caveman brute force, we decided that, hey, go ahead and learn us good. Go ahead and teach us the optimal way to do this. And I had a lot of fun, because Thordan's kind of where we developed this. We're like, alright, if we're through it, if we've already done it that way, go ahead, feel free to tell us the good way to do it. And boy howdy, did it make that kind of middle segment of Thordan a lot easier. Once folks were like, you just gotta clock positions, you spread the ads apart, do the mind, like third eye opening moment of realizing the buffs that were on the ads indicated how much damage they were taking, that you should move your DPS accordingly.
Yes, the sword stance and the shield stance, and moving those around properly, not wailing on an invincible target. Pretty good idea.
When you would yell helicopter, and I was like,
helicopter.
What the is the helicopter?
Helicopter was any time any of these knights would take their swords and across the map.
They would Meta Knight from Super Smash. They would just Meta Knight. The triple charging knights is still something where I'm like, nope, I would absolutely depend on my teammates to show me where it is safe to stand. It is a insanely wide light attack. It's such a small tolerance for whether you get hit by this or not. And then, I'm just gonna give that attack public enemy number 1 of this fight if you're gonna go try it on, mid-high level of stream. It shows up in the final phase. Granted, just one of them. But there are so many other things happening at the same time. It's such this fight is a beautiful stacking escalation. It keeps introducing new things you need to worry about, and then by the time you get to essentially the final phase of the fight, which I'm told there's even more that we didn't see, because on our clear run, wonderful, there was more beyond it, but we cleared it soon enough that we didn't need to worry about it. But by the time you get to that, essentially the final phase, it has just stacked everything you've learned on top of each other. You now have to deal with all of the mechanics at the same time. There's very few windows of where you have a proper breather.
Yes, the way the ads are mechanics, and sometimes the ads are only mechanics, it is very chaotic, particularly the meteor phase. What's known as Phase 4B, because there's so many phases, they have to take the numbered phases and divide them into other phases, where comets are falling from the sky. One big meteor's falling in the middle. You have holy meteors. Sir Heminosti is in the middle, slamming circles. And I'm just spamming heals, running around. For this one I was doing astrology. I went back to my Heaven's Ward roots for this. Just running in chaos, while we're all also, some of us, on fire, exploding in an area around us. There is some place for, individual expression in Final Fantasy rating. A la 2015 here. We're talking Heaven's Ward, so things may have changed. But you're much better off just doing the dance the right way. And not trying to cheese it or come up with some unique idea or re-equip a gear or something.
Yeah. I mean, the first time we made it to the what I would call the final phase, I think they're more clearly delineated than that. But once you get through that middle segment and you get to where you have Thordan is the eye, but there's also a relocating eye at the edge of the...
Oh my god, what a surprise that was.
At the edge of the arena, yeah. That, to me, that whole... Everything after that point is the final phase. Because it's just mechanic soup. The first time we got there, we did pretty well, and I didn't even know that the eye at the edge of the arena was a mechanic, which seems so stupid of me now. It's of course it's a mechanic, you dingus. It's a giant. You think the giant eye is just hanging out there at the edge of the arena for fun? That they just Yeah, but then I think about Kafka. Is it Kafka?
Yeah, he's got the whole warring triad pillar.
The warring triad pillar shows up, and you're like, wow, that's beautiful and scary, and to me, vaguely Lovecraftian, because it's just horrifying. I don't really know what it means, but it's very much a mechanic that's on the edge of the arena. X-Death as a mechanic on the edge of the arena. Final Fantasy XIV loves mechanics on the edge of the arena that are graphically interesting. So my brain should have went, I think that eye's bad news. But no, I just went, I'm just going to assume that's set dressing. And now, but the funny thing was, the first attempt that we kind of actually lived a decent amount of time in that final phase, it went pretty well. It went pretty well, and so I just I don't know. Doesn't seem like the eye is of much consequence. Then we all got Meta Knight speared.
Yep.
Yep.
Not before, of course, I got destroyed by the Hoshaphat laser. Because you get your lock-on from Sir Zephrin's Spear of Fury, which the off-tank needs to intercept to kind of catch for you. You also get, like, Holy Bash, so you can't even move if you wanted to during that phase. Like, it is brutal, along with the boss existing at the same time. We ended up making it to phase 8, which, you're not wrong. Like, the entire kitchen sink, like, everything in the fridge is just thrown at you for this ending. Holy Chains, Dragon Glaze, Ascalon's Fury, Hemmeled Storm, Heaven's Flame, Sacred Cross, it just, all of it.
It was the KFC Game School mechanics. It was
Mix them all together.
It was just a lot. Yeah, it's your one uncle at Thanksgiving where you're just like, what? Do you have to mix it all? You have to mix it all.
Yeah, I do that. Oh yeah, well I do it.
Oh, you're that. No, you're that.
Yeah,
uncle.
like,
Okay.
at dinner proper, when the nice plates are out, I eat each thing individually. But when it's 1 a.m. and everyone's left for the night, oh yeah, you just open that fridge and you just start it right out of the Tupperwares. At first you're like, lightning storm. Oh, what an interesting mechanic. Oh, conviction towers. Oh.
This video is coming out very close in November. I'm a sandwich guy. I make a turkey sandwich that night. That's what I
Sure,
do.
that's good call. I like that.
That's what everyone showed up for. You showed up here for Garrett and Kyle's Thanksgiving leftover dips.
Meta strategy, yeah.
Yeah. No, this fight was incredible, and in a way, I think it is for me a clearly superior middle portion than Tsukiyomi.
If you live in Alberta and are struggling with heavy debts on credit cards like you see here, then we have great news for you this month. Finally, there are debt relief programs extended to every Alberta resident with $10,000 or more in unsecured debts. Click the blue button under this video to see if you're eligible for these debt relief programs. You may be eligible to reduce what you owe by 3/4 of your balances. For example, let's say you owe $10,000 on credit cards. You could reduce that amount to as little as $2,500. Or, let's say you pay $500 a month on your debts. You could cut that down to as little as $150 a month. There's no contact details required to see if you could qualify. And it doesn't cost a penny to discover your options. Click the blue button under this video to see if you could reduce your monthly payments. After you click the button, a new tab will open on your device and you'll see the exact same assessment you see on the screen right now. Simply tap your answers to the questions you see on the screen to determine if you could be eligible. Click the blue button now to get started.
We got a white dress.
We got a stack. Move the stack. Move the stack. Move the stack. Yeah, move. We're okay. It looks like it went off. Holy shit! Oh my god. Oh, that was a call on the stack. Who needs Echo?
Oh my
Who
god.
needs Echo?
That is an endurance trick.
So, Tsukiyomi Extreme. If you go back and watch our MSQ review for the end of Stormblood, you'll hear me talk about how this is one of my favorite fights of all time. Like ever. Oh, we wall of dungeons this, didn't we? Or wall of trial?
Yeah,
We wall
we
of
did.
trial this, and I believe I won an argument for putting this at the top. I love this fight. I really, really love this fight, and a reason I brought up back when we reviewed the normal version that you have to play to get through the MSQ, I said that I think it's, not to be overly serious, but I think it's beautiful the way that they incorporated lore and narrative into mechanics. And it was only when you were like, hey, let's take the two less extremes we did to make them fight. Let's take Thordan, let's take our Thordan action figure and our Tsukiyomi action figure and smack them together and listen to plastic noises. That I went, yo, dude, there's a thread here. These two fights are some of the most narratively heavy fights we have encountered. And I guess a lot of chapter N ones are too, because we could probably throw Nidhogg into this. The Nidhogg narrative kind of happens outside of it. Never mind. You're just kind of fighting a dragon. You're just kind of fighting a dragon.
This city flies around, but the ads that he summons, like the 2 dragons plus the 1 dragon, like the 3 dragons don't really mean anything outside of Nidhogg has control of dragons. Like this is literally the suffering bar is filling. You have to make sure you don't wipe because she's so sad.
Thordan has a better middle phase than Tsukiyomi. Kyle, are we masochists? Because I think we both prefer the middle phase of Thordan because it is hard as shit compared to the middle phase of Tsukiyomi.
Yes. I will also add the critique. I will add the critique on that this isn't even like a relaxing middle phase because it happens at 80%. But we even, at my level, made it to the ad phase in our first go. Now, granted, our party didn't know about job positions. This was the thing we learned here was more about like tanks at north. We had healers to the west and the DPS south. So when she'd do gun stuff or spear stuff, our team was already kind of doing it for us, so we were able to stumble through. But oh my goodness, I think we even rated Yako's fight really highly because we're like, this is awesome. Look at the storm. Look at everybody tumbling around. This is great. I get it now. I get why a less than stellar middle phase when you're progging or prep farming could be a bit of a bother.
Yeah, because even if you were doing this like unsafe because you're just trying to farm the mount, right? Because you need to run on an extreme. It's like this middle phase would get old. The thing that makes me love this fight so much is also the thing that makes it kind of a bore when you're doing it over and over again. And so there's that. I'm with you. Like suddenly I had that realization because we literally spent our entire night clearing Tsukiyomi Extreme. So we saw this middle phase a lot. And don't get me wrong, I love murdering Asahi over and over and over and over again as much as the next person. But it started to weigh on me a bit.
Xenos is cool. Gosetsu, it's great to see you again. But we were never really in any danger, except for when we sometimes get 69 on the suffering bar. That was
that became our little personal goal. Yeah. But the opening phase and the ad phase, it's legitimately easy. I'm just gonna say it's legitimately not a challenge. And then you get out of that, and the fight is just hard as butts. Like I think Tsukiyomi Extreme might be the hardest extreme we've done so far. And I think we've done the 3 that everyone kind of debates about. I feel like Shinryu, Thordan, and Tsukiyomi, those are the 3 that everyone's kind of like, it's pretty hard. And I haven't heard Tsukiyomi in the debate nearly as much. I have seen it showing up in our comments, but Thordan and Shinryu are the 2 that everyone I think says, these are like the hardest. And I'm like, I don't know, Tsukiyomi was like such a hard fail state. Like if you screwed up these mechanics compared to Shinryu and Thordan. Don't get me wrong. Like we are, to me, I think I'm deeply in hair-splitting territory now. All 3 of these are legitimately hard. All 3 of these are fairly transformative from their normal counterpart in terms of difficulty. Not as much in mechanics compared to something like Shinryu. Shinryu is like truly a completely different fight, which is so cool. But all 3 of them, I think, they really move the needle in terms of just how much more damn difficult this is. But Tsukiyomi seemed almost vital. Like, if you don't get this right, it's over. Whereas it felt like the other fights, there was a little bit of room for error, a little bit easier to get off a limit break, and have enough like one more last ditch effort to try and clear this thing.
There is no room for forgiveness in Tsukiyomi. When you get to Selenomancy moon stuff, anyone can wipe everything.
This is bad. This is bad.
Yep.
That was rough.
Sorry, that's too rough. What? Oh, here. Do we not have any?
My fault.
Oh, the rocks exploded because they were next to each other.
That was my fault.
Okay. And you just went through the first phase, minutes, add phase, minutes, and now you're invested in this run. It's been pretty easy up to this point. Moonlit, moon shadows, the debuffs, the stacking of doom, having to be on top of those stacks and place your butt inside the various new moon zones or full moon zones, and
Yeah, or you're literally running with someone who doesn't know what new moon means.
that could happen.
Yeah, I don't know who in our group didn't know the phases of the moon, but boy, would it be embarrassing if you didn't know what new moon meant.
Yeah, Garrett didn't know the moon phases. He's not waxing and waning literate.
Meet Filmora 11, the video editor that can do more. Flying outside of Canada? Not always cheap, but Cheap Flights is here to help. Compare your...
Everything else makes sense. You have first quarter, you have full moon, you have last quarter. I know what full means. I know what quarters means. What the f is new moon? Why don't we just call it sliver?
Eventually, white and black become your strategy, and you drop the moon business. But this whole meteor dropping the rocks where you're gonna create moon holes, so you can then, in your final moments of doom, run over to a opposite moon hole, barely survive the doom, and then run out of it again. And guess what? It's not over. You gotta do this again later. It's not over. And I'll throw myself under the bus here a bit, but for the first 2 hours of our night, I never got a meteor. Just by chance. Falcon, the samurai, never received a meteor, and then suddenly 2 hours in, I've got a brand new mechanic I'm supposed to be figuring out. For the rest of the parties. Yeah, but for the rest of the night, I was in charge of this thing. And guess what? If the meteors are too close together, they explode and kill each other. So not only do you have to drop them in the appropriate moon phase to create moon holes for yourself to hang out in, they can't be too close together or you won't have anything to do. And you're now, 7 minutes in the fight or something? And you gotta do what?
Would you call it important moon business?
It's extremely important business.
The most important moon business.
I don't think I've ever done an MMO fight where one player can destroy everybody and ruin the entire run over and over again. So again, shout out to the team this night for being very positive, very down. Our forensics, our stream-based forensics helped out a bit figuring this out. In fact, I remember a particular instance where you did not believe me at all that this is how the moon holes worked. What is on this map that we could use? Wait, there's that dark circle of Moonbiz on C. Does that dark circle the moon hole? I think we need to get in the moon hole. Let's try getting in the moon hole before we ask.
Keep talking about a moon hole.
It looks like a ground effect, but it could be good. It could be pleasant.
I don't know.
Let's get in the moon hole. This pool to the moon hole.
I want it noted that I think this pull is dumb. Kyle has learned
Noted.
nothing, and he's going off of nothing.
Noted.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was like, what are you talking about?
It does look like a bad circle. Like,
Yeah.
particularly when you had the new moon hole sitting there, and you're thinking, that's not something I want to stand in. Plus, there was just an exploding rock there. Why would... Why? Why should we get everybody to run in that hole?
Kyle, I owe you a serious apology. you were right about the moon holes.
I mean, to be fair, it does seem pretty made up. Like, you know...
It's a diligent, for this part of the fight, like the whole, once you get past the ad phase, Tsukiyomi is really well designed. But like again, it's why I think I prefer Thordan. It's just the opening two phases of Tsukiyomi feel like a chore. Like I need to get through this so that I can learn the hard part of the fight. Whereas Thordan, it's all kind of equally hard. The opening phase is relatively easy, but the ad phase is somewhat difficult. And like you said, I feel like we accomplish something when we get through Thordan's ad phase. Whereas Tsukiyomi, in a game that doesn't really do trash, it kind of feels like trash. And I don't mean like insulting it in a way, like when you think about trash in an MMO. It feels like we're fighting ads, like, well, there's ad phase. It is literally fighting ads, but I hope you get my meaning.
It'd almost be nice if after the exploding moonhole phase, the things just got easy. But you would be dead wrong. Because then she enters color dress phase, where we have to watch her dress change colors, and it changes whether or not there's going to be an explosion in a donut or in the area around her.
We both did a good amount of tough love this night.
To get through it. Dude, yeah, Bright Blade, Dark Blade is not easy. Particularly when, hey, the boss can spin. Like, it's still not quite Lawberside levels of obtuse, but the boss can move. Left and right is in transit sometimes. It was really, really hard. Plus, it's a cleave to her back as well. Like, it is not just a half. It's a little bigger than a half. So, dodging this was nerve-wracking. And I used a third-party add-on called Sticky Notes to get through this. Made what was known as a diagram.
I was very annoyed at your diagram.
I was having trouble remembering the in and out, what dress color meant, where the donut or AoE circle was going to be, and I also have left and right association problems with dyslexia. So I created a sort of extended field of view with sticky notes so I could get through this phase.
You know, listen, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think you should give it a proof.
I think so too. I think he'd be okay. It was so nerve-wracking watching her change her dress around. And on top of this, don't forget, fans exploding, plus a stack mechanic. And she's changing her outfits. What a miserable 35%.
It was starboard, larboard all over again for me.
If you're a resident of Alberta, struggling with heavy debts on credit cards like you see here, then we have great news for you.
5%.
It was starboard, larboard all over again for me. I think it was kind of serendipitous that these were the next two extremes that we did, because it wasn't until you and I were talking about possibly doing this video as these two fights, like, not that long ago, that I was like, oh, these fights are linked, because with Thordan we go, and obviously Thordan is narrative in his own right, but the mechanics of the knights, like the fact that you summoned the knight that killed Harshavon and the rest of the knights, and these mechanics that you need to deal with, that while yes, I was tanking while you all needed to worry about the mechanic that killed Harshavon. I didn't need to worry about that, but you're worrying about that, but also maybe in the back of your mind, just, you know, if you're one of these people like us that really enjoys the MSQ, you're like, oh, you bastard, you killed my friend. Like, that's going through your brain, and an entire expansion, like expansion and a half, Tsukiyomi closes out Stronghold, so an expansion and a half later, you go and do Tsukiyomi. And these two fights, they seem cut from a similar cloth, because you go and fight Tsukiyomi, and yeah, you gotta get through that ad phase, and while it is, at the end of the day, a classic MMO boss mechanic of, alright, time for the ad phase, gotta deal with all these additional mobs. There's a lot more to it because of the narrative meaning of what we're going through and who we're fighting right now. So much of our journey through this game has been being proved right on the popular opinion that Final Fantasy XIV is one of the best stories ever told in a game. And depending on who you are, and you'll probably let me know in the comments right now, you might just think it's one of the best stories ever told. I did not expect to show up to this game and experience some of the best boss fights I've ever played in an MMO. It's something that I put a lot of value in. It's a reason I come to MMOs in the first place. So it's just been this delightful surprise, as Final Fantasy XIV has proved to me, expansion after expansion, that yes, its story is as good as everyone hypes it up to be. It's also had this corner of delightful surprise in its boss fights. It comes to play and stands toe-to-toe with some of the best MMO fights I've ever experienced.
And I definitely understand why World of Warcraft players coming to Final Fantasy call Final Fantasy's boss design a dance now. Because Shinryu was kind of a special case. There was quite a bit of variance between the levy bolts and getting in the puddles and the icicles. But Thordan, you had to do things right, with a little room for variance. Tsukiyomi, you did everything right or else. But that escalation, particularly in Thordan, really embodied this for me. Just, you learn a mechanic about the pillars, or our helicopters, and you'd see that again in the final moments. Tsukiyomi, it escalated, but when those all came together, it was just chaos. But it gave us this party moment that I feel like really adds to the victory here. When things were at their absolute worst, that's when you killed the boss. And I really like that design. It means you walk away really feeling it.
Wall of Extremes when, Kyle?
A long time out. So now we've seen 2015 mechanics. We've seen 2018 mechanics. I am very curious to see how this dance evolves in Shadowbringers. And do they embrace more World of Warcraft ideas with the influx of players during that time? Or do they stick to this dance idea?
Well, they don't want you to use add-ons, so I have a feeling that probably plays a role.
Oh my god, I love not being yelled at by a bunch of bells and bars.
Yeah, it's so much better to get yelled at by chat instead.
Yeah, add-ons by grinding gear, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So sticky.
When you're looking for effective pain relief, choose Tylenol. It's clinically proven to start working in 15 to 20 minutes. Get to know your pain relief. Tylenol. Up to 37 billion liters of Canada's fresh water is wasted each year just by pre-rinsing dishes. Finish Quantum Ultimate is specially designed to let you skip the rinse, saving up to 75 liters per load. Help protect our water with Finish Quantum Ultimate.
Dude, extremes are f***ing extreme.
Underestimate would be a word I use.
As advertised.
Yeah.
So, we did our first extreme, and we decided, because we're geniuses, that it should be Shinryu. By the way, we started mid-eye level, no echo. And if you notice, I said we started.
4 hours of minimi level, no echo. And then, at 1 a.m. your time, after being blasted by bolts from the sky while also chained together, at 33%, we decided, you know what, we might try out that echo business. Just to see, and only 2 stacks, like, that's not bad. There are some words I would use here, such as a lot,
Excessive.
intense,
Some might say masochistic.
busy.
Might even say the most fun I've had in this game so far.
I would agree. I love working within the confines of the game, and you could really feel those confines during this. The camera only goes back so far. The visual field is not big enough when there's stuff behind you, and stuff in front of you, and stuff at your feet, and wings shooting their own lasers. And Caspar, like, I felt I was playing StarCraft. And I started boxing my eyes like you do in StarCraft. Macro, Caspar, my bar, left, right, up, down, like trying my buffs, everybody, like my timers, my cooldowns, my dots on the boss. It was insane.
Yeah, I became fairly robotic by the end, which I loved. It felt so awesome. I wasn't darting as much as you, because as a tank, you don't need to worry about running stuff out until like one very specific part. So I was mostly just, I'm darting between the enemy list and my abilities, for the most part. And then whenever I would see something casting on the enemy list that I knew I then needed to look out for, then my eyes would dart to the actual game itself. And it was, I really got in a flow state. It got really intense. I rallied on that like last 45 minutes, but I would say the 30 minutes that preceded that, I really started to fall off my game. We had some rough runs there.
Man, there was one particular cursed run where I died 5 times, just chaining. Every time I got back up, just chaining. Hey, now's a great time to bring up our awesome crew that we ran with. Like, shout out to our community. Shout out to everybody who participated last night. It was amazing.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of fine folks in the B-roll today of this fight, because we ran with the same 6 other people the entire night. We didn't do sign-ups. We're just like, hey, you want to come? Here's the code. Good luck. Know what you're signing up for. So bring your A game. Oh my god, dude. It took me back. Before I go down memory lane, if you dig Kyle and my work, thank our members and our patrons for supporting us. Both get access to our exclusive Discord channels. Go check out supportourbromance.com for our Patreon, or join our YouTube membership right here. Both help us out. Thanks for the support, everybody. It hasn't been that long since I've essentially quit WoW. I'm going to start playing again because I'm excited for Wrath. But it's been a while since I haven't played World of Warcraft, but not that long. But it's been a very long time since I've been a serious raider. So we're talking 2010, 2011. Wrath of the Lich King was the last time I was raiding 4 nights a week. You and I don't know if people have noticed, we're pretty close friends. I like playing games with you. I've never gotten to raid with you. This is 100% the most difficult co-op gaming experience we've engaged in together.
And I needed it. So far, the MSQ trials have been tame. There was Titan Hard, which sticks out in my memory a little bit, which we did on minimum eye level. There was Nidhogg on minimum eye level, which we didn't know any indicators for at the time. They were brand new for us. But this was, without a doubt, the most insane thing we've done in the game, and it was so cool to feel pushed, but in such a different way than my World of Warcraft experience. My big raiding time when I was hardcore was Gruul's Lair, Karazhan, Burning Crusade raids. And every time a raid fell apart, people got too grumpy. Oh no, we go to Karazhan, a much more intimate experience, a 10-man raid, just going in there and feeling a lot closer to everybody. This was that. The 8-man count really makes you feel like everybody's important and everybody has to pull their weight, but that's not everything. Particularly on minimum eye level, like, gear doesn't really matter too much here. It is skill, it is the dance, and tanks, DPS, and healers all have their own mechanics to dance with, to contend with, on top of the raid-wide mechanics. Would it be a raid?
Technically a trial, but as far as I'm concerned, like, if I'm above the standard dungeon size, it's a raid to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's raid content. All of this is raid content. That's why it's hard, it's end game. There's, at the time, if this was current, end game loot to be had. In my mind, again, as a student of other MMOs, that's raiding to me.
It's tough to put into words just how well crafted this sort of strategic content is. Like, I am honestly blown away. Because the group is so small and so tactical, we're all watching out for each other's backs, all trying to solve the puzzle together, and with everyone contending with their own issues, with their own mechanics, and the healers need to do DPS, and everyone needs to target the right thing at the right time. It just has a sense of strategy and camaraderie that I've never experienced in an MMO, which pushes this less an MMO content for me, more just co-op gaming. Like, this was just co-op gaming experience rather than an instanced trial.
That's where I come from, and so to me, this does feel like, because I primarily rated in World of Warcraft as a 10-man, so we're only 2 players off. And with your fond memories of Karazhan, I'm surprised it doesn't feel a little similar to you. Like, the shot calling, which was me, which I didn't really do, not in my, like, hardcore raids. I ran a lot of pickup raids with my friends that I would shot call on, but, like, my progression raid, I was never the shot caller for that. But it was fun to do it again. And, like, all of that, it feels, to me, that's my warm MMO blanket. Like, that's why it became such a serious hobby for me, because that type of challenging content really got its hooks in me, and Shinryu is one of the better ones I've ever played. It's right up there. This was such a cool fight.
Everyone is buzzing about honeycomb pasta right now, so today I'm gonna show you how to make it. But first, let me boil some water. 771 million people are drinking dirty water. Women are risking their safety walking.
I'd really like to talk also about just the extreme system as a whole, because, of course, there's got to be a lore reason for why this is even happening. Because it's not canon, Kyle.
I love the excuse here. Some said this was Yoshi P's NPC in-game. I could see it a little bit. I love the idea that a bard is spinning a more epic tale, and that is our excuse for why this story exists. We're in a dream, we're in a... Bring it! Like, in a game where lore matters so much, I'm glad we can step outside of it to create these outrageous scenarios. And yeah, this probably shouldn't be something you subject every single player going through this game to. And saying, hey, you cannot defeat Stormblood the expansion and move on in your story until you defeat Shinryu in his domain in this mode. Might be a little much.
It's interesting for a game where the predominant advertised point by its ravenous fan base, not a cult, is that the story's really good. Like, the story's amazing, it's one of the best stories out there, it just happens to be in it. RPG folks take the MSQ and they take the narrative of Final Fantasy XIV very seriously because it's really freaking good. And the game takes itself seriously for the most part. There's a lot of people projected into the MSQ, but they're not afraid to give themselves, like, to need to make it make sense within the world of these games. You just kind of have to pick things up to the they always go back to finish these games. Otherwise, we're like, just like, here you go, you beat normal, here's this game, go have fun. Like, no, let's add the scene, let's give you a backstory, this is why, here's some in-game reasoning for why we're going to go non-canon fight. It's harder than the original. This is great, they didn't have to do it. They did.
And I wanted Shinryu to be our first extreme. I did not know the level we were signing up for compared to something like a Rover Born trial, or maybe even a Heaven's Born trial. So far, I haven't felt that challenge, that need to improve. My samurai rotation isn't great, but it's been serviceable up to this point. I need a game to say, no, you're not good enough, before I myself will improve.
When you were having, so you've been recently trying to make the switch to controller, which could be its whole other video. We're not going to go too deep on controller here, but as a result of that, you were playing on controller and you were having some targeting issues, so you're having trouble targeting the heart. And boy howdy, Kyle, your damage is great, because when you were not targeting the heart, it was very apparent.
Samurais do a lot. It was very cool to be tested in that way, and yes, all the advertisements they put on TV for this game is somebody waving a controller in Spider-Man's face. I want to see what it's all about, and honestly, for Samurai, the rhythm of the various sticker combinations is just way more natural on controller. My fingers flow better, but I didn't know how to change targets because I've never been tested in that way. Outside of dropping target, hitting the nearest melee thing, and Shinryu had his heart and himself in the same space. In fact, himself was the closer target, so I couldn't drop target easily to get on the heart. So I learned a lot last night about how to play this game, not just for controller, overall.
I only bring it up to compliment your damage. I am not running mods, so I have no way to see how much damage you're doing. But I could see how much damage you weren't doing to the heart, because boy, when you were on it, that thing melted.
I need to lose in order to improve. And this was so satisfying to me. And I think the fact that at hour 4 we turned on Echo is just that much more of a compliment to the game. That a bunch of noobs like us could wander into your game with your mechanics and these difficulties and be like, I played World of Warcraft. and just destroy it.
What the heck is this?
let's just nerd out. Let's just freaking nerd out on Shinryu for a bit here, because this is some top tier MMO bossage here, buddy.
The mechanics are so thick and busy, but there's a rhythm to them. There's slight, like, 50-50 randomization in some abilities, but once you start to get it down, the early phase turns into a cakewalk, while the later phase is a combination of the early phase mechanics combined in nefarious ways.
Oh, totally. Yeah, well, I think a lot of good fights, a lot of good boss fights are that way. It's a good frustration, if that makes sense. I get this frustration on boss fights that have late phases because my brain starts to go, oh, when you fail, like maybe say it was like our 5th time wiping on phase 3. Well, I just want to go back to phase 3 because I just want to practice that. But that's not how it works. Like, part of it is making sure you master those phases before to get there, and then you still need to have the wherewithal and the presence of mind to master phase 3. Alright, so I did something kind of interesting for this, Kyle. So since we just kind of threw ourselves into it, we didn't study up for it. We did have some questions answered in the moment from our party, but we didn't study this up like I would for a WoW fight. After the fact, I went back and looked up a guide, because I'm like, alright, what did I completely misunderstand? Now that we've got it down, I want to go see a breakdown of this. And the guide I looked at broke it down into 4 phases, which I didn't even think of. My brain kind of goes first phase, and then once we grab his back and fly and do the active time maneuver, then that's phase 2. But it makes sense because the guide I saw broke it down to phase 1 is what you assume phase 1 is. Phase 2 is the ads phase. Phase 3 is once you cross the tail bridge, which is so cool. So cool that you get to run across the tail. And then phase 4 is when you jump on Shinryu's back, kill the wings, finish the fight, essentially.
I did the same, and that's when I became shocked by how much fun healers were doing. Like, healers do not just go into this special little cubby, thank you for playing healer, we love you so much, just heal everybody okay, and do a little DPS if you can. No, like, they have brutal side mechanics to deal with, in addition to healing everybody up, and checks on that, just raw healing checks that are splashing the entire crew, or they have to get certain health percentage up to a certain amount in certain mechanics, like, brutal. Tanks have their own mechanics, which is, that's a known thing in MMOs, like, tanks always have to deal with extra stuff.
I guess I have tank-specific mechanics, but really I haven't had to deal with multi-tank mechanics. I know there's been at least one tank swap, I think, in one of the Evil East fights, I don't remember what one. Shinryu is now the thing I've run the most. One night, Shinryu is the thing I have run the most. So, like, my knowledge of this is so much greater than anything else we've done as a result of that. But, yeah, I struggle to think of an example of a multi-tank mechanic, but Shinryu has multiple multi-tank mechanics. And so that was a learning curve that also felt comfortable, because it's something I used to deal with a lot in World of Warcraft. So hey, you want to know the first thing that I completely didn't get?
Bring it.
So in phase 1, Shinryu's auto attacks hit the highest aggro and off tank.
Oh, that was all the lasers. Okay. I like that they actually made laser sounds.
Dude, the laser sounds were so distracting.
There were lasers combined with bigger lasers. But there were a lot of things we misunderstood, such as the health of the heart and the health of the tail and how that related to abilities. That was more of a way to deal big damage, it seemed, to Shinryu, and make sure that other abilities maybe didn't trigger, or that something bad didn't happen, like the platform breaking wrongly. It was actually the corrupted ether gauge that was most dangerous, or at least signified other abilities going off.
That plus hearts at 100, and the heart is still up when one of these real life AoE spells goes off, you're dead.
When that damage to the heart went back to Shinryu, so there's no reason not to do it, even if it was mechanic-based. And that's what I'm talking about, like, even the DPS in this way, the fight was designed that DPS were helping, not just killing. Like, we had targets that weren't ads, that directly affected how the boss was going to work for the tanks and the healers. It's all interwoven, and that's what I loved about this so much. That's what made it a strategy game, rather than a gear-based RPG.
Burning Chains I feel like we picked up pretty quick. I was unsure of how to break them at first. Have we seen chains before? I feel like we've seen chains before.
We've seen tethers. I don't know if we've directly seen distance-based breaking chains, but the trick was that you had to wait for them to spawn. Not only the graphic would appear on you, but you had to wait for it to connect. And should you run away in advance, that would be the length of the chain you now had to break. And should you have gone too far, the chain was too long.
It's distance traveled, not max distance. So if you start really far apart, you could leave yourself not enough room to reach the distance traveled you need to. Also, I noticed while we're going through guides, the first tail slam apparently always goes on a healer. That's from what I've read. Didn't realize that. Like the very first tail slam to come out in this, I guess it's always on a healer. And I got lucky. Poor Azumi, the off tank, all last night. Azumi got it almost every time. I think I got it 4 times, so we did a lot of attempts. That's a panic, by the way. When you get that thing.
You gotta get it out of there. Otherwise you kill everybody. Like that's the one person can ruin the raid. Well, the bombs later on, but
there's a couple of those.
Yeah.
My favorite chair at IKEA. That was one that we struggled with for a long time. I think it was a while before we realized 11 volt was this big AoE, because there's a lot of visual busyness. Even if you have your friend's spells turned down, just Shinryu itself, there's a lot of visual stuff going on. I at no point noticed that 11 volt had a radius around me. But once we started doing that, that was really good. But that was one of the things in the ass later on. We started getting tired. And if you miss one, that icicles. The 2 things that you probably master first, and it's also the first thing you're going to forget or miss. And it's going to get you later.
It was particularly villainous when the icicles were combined. So we were having to, in a hallway, spread out.
I knew that you got an Ak, and I didn't know it had different names. So Ak Morn is the one that hits tanks, and Ak Rai is the one that randomly hits a non-tank, I guess. And do you get marked? I don't think you get marked. I think it just randomly hits a person.
Right, so we would all spread out and try to make sure it wasn't on top of you guys, the tanks, who were already being lasered, and not on top of our friends. Basically, just wiggle constantly. Just always be moving, and on Samurai, that's a little easier, because I have so many instant casts until I invest in my final finisher.
Yeah, that was scary. That was the one where I just went, alright, I don't care if we're running this blind. Will someone explain what this thing is that keeps killing me? Because I didn't know. I didn't know it was a tank stack mechanic. I had nightmares about that after this evening.
Mine was 11 volt. That was the nightmare scenario for me. The spread no water compared to the in the water. And the water was left by a tidal wave, which hit you from the side or back. But hey, arm's length. That's like doing work last night. Allow me to stay in the boss and keep fighting.
Oh yeah, this is the most I've ever used arm's length. I always forget about arm's length. Oh, my tidal wave hits like a truck.
Yeah, well that's part of that healing check, right? Like they gotta get you back up, but it's also our job across the entire team to make sure we're not taking unnecessary damage, so that when the heal check hits, we don't all die. But 2, you're not overtaxing these healers who also have to run out of tail, who also are chained, and helping out the tanks who are trying to mitigate the damage.
And then there's just what I call butt clench, which is diamond dust. Diamond dust that happened in phase 1, oh my god. What a cheeks clencher.
And chains for the healer during that.
Yes, guaranteed on the healers. And while it's happening, it is now frosted ground, which means you're going to slide uncontrolled, well, a predetermined distance in the first direction you move. If you move.
The one I had to ask about was the tethered purple dragon heads that would come down and connect a laser to a player. I was desperately trying to slash these things or target these things and figure out what I should be doing about it. Another heal check. Gotta get...
Okay, what's the logic?
Well, let's find out. The thinking of the CEO is like, stop waiting. 2 jobs, F1. He went on LinkedIn, and he wrote a tweet saying how he works his job, you're stealing, and you're not an ethical or an honest person. His name is David Bell.
What did he actually say? It's a new form of theft and deception, and not something in which an ethical, honest person would participate. I think that, do you have to disclose? Because, like, if you lie and you say, I'm not working any other job, and you are, then yes, clearly that would be unethical and it would be deceptive, right? I mean, of course it would be. And I think in other situations it could be as well. But if this isn't explicitly asked, or this has no real bearing to your actual job requirements or your obligations, then I don't think it's a big deal. You generally sign a non-compete contract, and that's the thing, right? And this is the point that I'm making, is that I usually try to hear out what people say, even whenever they have an opinion that is generally wrong. I try to hear the right in wrong opinions and the wrong and right opinions. So we'll see what this says, but I do think that yes, if you are working at a company with a non-compete clause and you're secretly working for another company inside of the same industry, then yes, you are. It's absolutely unethical and it's absolutely dishonest, and you should absolutely be fired for that without even a question. Well, that's different. You're right, that is different. So let's see what the context is.
And you're not an ethical or an honest person. His name's Davis Bell. He's the CEO at Canopy.
Bald.
Now, I think it's pretty obvious that I'm pro being overemployed, but only if you can handle it. It starts here. We've caught and fired 2 recent hire engineers who never quit their last job at a big tech company when they came to work for us. They were following a new trend of picking up a second full-time job while lying about it to both employers. Did they say, I am not working 2 full-time jobs, I'm only working for you? Did they commit?
Well, I think that, yeah, what I'm saying is that I think in a lot of these contracts, especially with software engineer and intellectual property type jobs, you do have to sign non-compete contracts. I know, like, my dad had to sign one whenever he worked at the company that he worked at. So yeah, I have no problem if you're not, if, like, theoretically, like, if you're not signing a non-compete and if you're not explicitly lying about working 2 jobs, then I think that it's a...
They fixed the car accident damage, and TD Insurance gave us a lifetime warranty on the repair.
Lifetime meaning?
The beast lives.
Get a lifetime warranty on...
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Crystal Core Radio Podcast. Brian and Chris here today talking about the state of the Criterion Dungeons, how we feel about them, how the community's talking about them, and then we're also going to talk about my video that I released just yesterday about how I'm moving on from the world of Final Fantasy XIV. 2 topics, some meaty stuff to be talking about here. I saw in our Discord, a lot of people were like, wait, Brian's not playing 14 anymore? Which, if you've been following your content, that's kind of like, that's not a revelation. It's nobody who's actively involved in the community is like, what? But essentially there were some concerns, and so I tried to reassure them on Discord that, like, you told me when I told you that you're like, you've never been more in love with Final Fantasy XIV. You've never been having this much fun with the game in your entire history of playing it. So I was like, no, Chris has got you covered, you know, so we're going to still be doing that. But that's going to be kind of something we'll talk about, just some of the thoughts we've had, some of our plannings that we've got going on. If you guys are watching here on the YouTubes, be sure to check us out on Twitch. Chris is live, probably with Final Fantasy XIV, but you're going to get more than just 14 knowledge. This guy knows WoW, Guild Wars 2. So much so that anytime anybody talks to you about Guild Wars, they're usually like, what in the hell, you know?
I just made it to the top 50,000 global for achievements on Final Fantasy XIV. And I'm number 1,000 on Sargatanas.
Hell to the yes. So Chris has been crushing it. He's got some really interesting goals, so he's a great place to hang out with. And so, yeah, we'll talk more about that here in the second part. I want to bring up Criterion. This is the hard mode dungeons the community has been asking for a very, very long time. We finally now have access to the system, both the variant Criterion and the Savage mode. You and I have got to go hands-on with it, and as I work to finish up the final 6 controller guides, that's where I'm stepping in to put them to the test. You know, like finish up Dragoon, Monk, etc. But Chris, you've spent more time with Criterion system than I have so far. What's your initial hot take?
I love it. I love it. I think it's overall a brilliant thing for the game. There's room for it to improve. Some of the ways I want it to improve would really be best if they were done after the 2nd or 3rd iteration anyway. So, like, we haven't even missed those kind of off-ramps per se. Like, you know, if the system as a whole gets a really big, like, overall reward system, you would add that once we have more than one Criterion dungeon. So, yeah. Like, maybe we won't get that, and then I can be upset, but there's no reason to be upset now. I can be upset in the future if they choose not to do that. So, like, some of the things are just things I want later. there are some things I want now.
Like what?
So I would love to personally see it somehow tied to the power increase in a slight way. So either adding a new item level iteration just below Savage, maybe a couple levels low. We typically run in 5s, but there's no reason that we couldn't have like a 628. So that when you kill the first boss, that can help you with the second boss, because it turns out the first boss is asking a lot of non-Savage players. Either that or using it as a better tome source. The tomes per clear, like really you still need to go do your hunts. So if I am willing to grind Criterion each week, that should kind of resolve a pretty big chunk of my tomes. And that could be done through weekly challenge log, that could be done through having the final chest drop a ton of tomes, something like that. Or it could become a source of those kind of crafting ingredients, a little bit earth, so maybe that's where like the twines come from or something. So I'm really not like the loot expert in how that doesn't break anything, but it looks like it's always going to be released roughly 8 weeks into the Savage grind, which means at that point, like a lot of groups have at least cleared the full tier. Plenty of people are clearing the first boss, the second boss multiple times. It doesn't feel outrageous if they're going to tune it this hard to put some item level, if they're going to make it item level relevant. If it's not going to be item level relevant, like if they're just going to sink us like Bosja, then it doesn't need to drop gear if they don't want it to. Like nothing matters at that point. If they want to have it be source of gear, that's fine. If not, that's fine, because we're all effectively doing the same thing. But it feels weird that I would be trying to prog Criterion, and the best thing I could do right now is go get some weekly lockout loot from Savage.
This is such a weird line, because there's a couple points you brought up. This is like 8 weeks after the Savage race. We do know that 6.4 and 6.5 will introduce more AS is what they're calling the Savage mode, another Asyldian subterranean. Oh, you gotta love our acronyms within the community. But beyond that, like the fear that a lot of people have had with this piece of content is all of a sudden you introduce a manual kind of grind, and if this is actually your be-all end-all in a reverse kind of way, what you just said.
So here's what you should have done if you were a Nazi and you wanted to win the war. You should have enslaved the Jews and the Gypsies and had them work, right? You should have had them work for the benefit of the victory, and then if you wanted to, liquidate them afterwards. That's the logical thing to do if you want to win. And we assume that Hitler wanted to win. But that's not a very intelligent assumption. Why would you assume that? He wasn't exactly a good guy. So why should we assume that he was aiming at the good that he was promoting, even in his own terms? You certainly don't devote a substantial proportion of your war resources while you're losing to accelerate the rate at which the extermination is taking place, because that's a bit counterproductive, unless what you're aiming at is the maximum possible mayhem in the shortest period of time. If you can't figure out what someone's doing or why, look at the outcome and infer the motivation. If it produces mayhem, perhaps it was aiming at mayhem. So here's what you should have done if you were a Nazi and you wanted to win the war. You should have enslaved the Jews and the Gypsies and had them work. Right? Jews and the Gypsies and had them work. Right? You should have had them work for the benefit of the victory, and then if you wanted to, liquidate them afterwards. That's the logical thing to do if you want to win. And we assume that Hitler wanted to win. But that's not a very intelligent assumption. Why would you assume that? He wasn't exactly a good guy. So why should we assume that he was aiming at the good that he was promoting, even in his own terms? You certainly don't devote a substantial proportion of your war resources while you're losing to accelerate the rate at which the extermination is taking place, because that's a bit counterproductive, unless what you're aiming at is the maximum possible mayhem in the shortest period of time. If you can't figure out what someone's doing or why, look at the outcome and infer the motivation. If it produces mayhem, it was aiming at mayhem. So here's what you should have done if you were a Nazi and wanted to win the war. You should have enslaved the Jews and the Gypsies and had them work. Right? You should have had them work for the benefit of the victory, and then if you wanted to, liquidate them afterwards. That's the logical thing to do if you want to win. And we assume that Hitler wanted to win. But that's not a very intelligent assumption. Why would you assume that? He wasn't exactly...
I just saw someone post on their Instagram story from their bed saying, I have a flight in an hour, will I make it? No! Okay, go! You board in 32 minutes? And you're not vertical yet? Okay. This girl the other day posted a video where she said, I have to be at this important dinner in 15 minutes, but get ready with me. Get ready with you. But they're lying. There's no way if you actually had to be somewhere in that small, minuscule amount of time that you would be making content.
I am so happy that I'm not the only person who gets emotionally invested in TikTok because these people make me so angry. It also just solidifies the fact that social media is not real. Like, people will rent a private jet just to hop on at the airport, take pictures, and leave. They never had parents who constantly made them late for everything, and it shows. Yeah, I have anxiety about being late. I'm everywhere like 15 minutes early.
I just saw someone post on their Instagram story from their bed saying, I have a flight in an hour, will I make it? No! Go! You board in 32 minutes? And you're not vertical yet? Okay. This girl the other day posted a video where she said, I have to be at this important dinner in 15 minutes, but get ready with me. Get ready with you. But they're lying. There's no way if you actually had to be somewhere in that small, minuscule amount of time that you would be making content.
I am so happy that I'm not the only person who gets emotionally invested in TikTok because these people make me so angry. It also just solidifies the fact that social media is not real. Like, people will rent a private jet just to hop on at the airport, take pictures, and leave. They never had parents who constantly made them late for everything, and it shows. Yeah, I have anxiety about being late. I'm everywhere like 15 minutes early.
I just saw someone post on their Instagram story from their bed saying,
Now in a 900 milliliter size, Yogo Nano yogurt is perfect for every appetite.
More please, Mom. I'm a growing girl.
Really?
Yeah, look how tall I am.
Wow, you're right.
Thank you.
Yogo Nano yogurt for every appetite.
No more. No more. No more.
Trying to find the right way to walk. Maybe something's either way.
Good afternoon.
Level. Good job, Ivy. So much blood Now I've seen my son again. Oh, my child, I'm sorry. Now you face the mountain king. determination.